You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your Security Plus certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Assignment and ownership in cybersecurity mean identifying who is responsible for every asset, control, and process in an organization. Assets do not secure themselves, and controls only work when someone is accountable for maintaining them. Assignment is the act of designating responsibility, while ownership is the commitment to carry it out. Together, these concepts ensure there is no ambiguity about who safeguards a server, a database, or even a specific dataset. Without clear ownership, accountability evaporates, and tasks such as patching or incident response can stall while teams debate who is supposed to act. Clear ownership reduces uncertainty during both daily operations and security incidents. In routine contexts, it ensures that patching schedules are followed, backups occur on time, and monitoring rules are maintained. In crisis situations, it eliminates confusion by pointing directly to the person or team empowered to make decisions. For example, if a breach affects a critical application, knowing exactly who owns that application speeds triage and response. Hardening organizational security depends as much on clarity of responsibility as it does on technical defenses. Ownership provides the human chain of accountability that underpins effective action. Roles help define different dimensions of ownership. A data owner determines how information is classified, who should have access, and what level of protection it requires. A system owner takes responsibility for the infrastructure hosting that data, ensuring servers and applications remain hardened and operational. Custodians perform the day-to-day tasks of managing systems, such as applying patches or monitoring logs, while stewards focus on data governance, ensuring policies are followed and quality is maintained. By clarifying these distinctions, organizations avoid overlaps or gaps, ensuring that every security task aligns with an appropriate role. Asset classification links ownership to sensitivity and handling rules. Assets such as databases, applications, or storage volumes are not all equally valuable or risky. Classification assigns categories such as public, internal, confidential, or restricted based on the potential impact of compromise. Owners are then tied to these classifications, responsible for ensuring assets are protected according to their level. For example, a public-facing website may allow broad access, while a restricted HR database requires encryption and tight monitoring. Classification transforms ownership from a generic label into a responsibility bound to specific handling rules. Assignment workflows ensure ownership is managed consistently. Typically, workflows begin with nomination, where an asset is associated with a proposed owner. This is followed by acceptance, where the individual or team acknowledges and agrees to the role. Escalation occurs when owners leave or responsibilities change, preventing assets from becoming orphaned. Without structured workflows, ownership may drift or be overlooked, leaving gaps in coverage. Hardening organizational processes means embedding these steps into governance, ensuring ownership transitions are deliberate, documented, and traceable throughout the asset's lifecycle. Accountability connects ownership to operational tasks like patching, configuration management, backups, and monitoring. When responsibilities are vague, these activities often fall through the cracks. A database without a clear owner may remain unpatched for months, silently accumulating vulnerabilities. By tying specific operational duties to ownership, organizations create accountability loops that ensure work gets done. Ownership makes abstract responsibilities concrete. If a system is misconfigured, the owner is the point of accountability, and processes exist to follow up. This clarity reduces risk and drives consistent maintenance across the enterprise. Stewardship represents a deeper layer of ownership, focused on long-term care rather than immediate tasks. Stewards ensure that assets remain aligned with policies, that documentation is current, and that compliance requirements are met. This may include recording exceptions, validating that data is being handled according to classification rules, or ensuring lifecycle processes are followed. Unlike custodianship, which often involves tactical tasks, stewardship is about governance and continuous alignment with standards. Hardened environments depend on strong stewardship to ensure ownership does not just exist on paper but translates into sustainable, policy-driven practice. Ownership also integrates into access review and attestation cycles. During periodic reviews, owners must confirm that only appropriate users retain access to their systems and data. They attest to the validity of permissions, ensuring former employees or unnecessary accounts are removed. This connection reinforces accountability by tying ownership directly to identity management. Hardening access controls relies on owners reviewing who has access to what and why. Without this tie, reviews may become rubber stamps rather than meaningful evaluations of privilege. Ownership ensures accountability is personal and decisions are deliberate. Cross-functional responsibilities often arise when assets span multiple domains. For example, a SaaS platform may involve application administrators, data owners, and network teams all sharing responsibility. Collaborative governance models ensure these overlaps are managed without creating confusion. Joint ownership agreements, regular coordination meetings, and shared documentation help clarify where responsibilities begin and end. Hardening governance means acknowledging that no single role owns every aspect of complex assets. By creating frameworks for shared accountability, organizations maintain clarity while supporting collaboration across security, operations, and business teams. Audit trails provide the evidence that ownership and assignment are being managed responsibly. These records show who assigned an owner, when the assignment was accepted, and how ownership changed over time. Audit trails also demonstrate accountability during incidents, allowing investigators to verify whether the responsible parties acted appropriately. Without these records, organizations struggle to prove that ownership is more than a nominal concept. Hardened processes demand traceability, ensuring every decision about ownership and classification is documented in a way that stands up to both technical and regulatory scrutiny. Training and onboarding are essential for newly assigned owners. Simply assigning a name is insufficient unless that person understands their responsibilities and the expectations tied to the role. Owners should be trained on policies, processes, and the tools they will use to fulfill their duties. For example, a new system owner must know how to request patches, validate backups, and manage monitoring alerts. Hardened organizations do not assume that ownership knowledge is intuitive. They provide structured onboarding to ensure every owner can succeed in their role and uphold accountability. Ultimately, ownership and classification drive operational controls and incident responsibilities. When assets are properly classified, their owners know exactly what rules to apply and how to prioritize protection. When incidents occur, clear ownership ensures that the right people respond quickly with authority. Without this pairing, assets drift unmanaged and accountability collapses. Hardened organizations rely on ownership and classification as the glue connecting governance, operations, and security. Together, they transform abstract controls into actionable responsibilities, ensuring that security is both operationalized and sustainable across the enterprise. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Maintaining an authoritative asset registry is the foundation for tracking ownership, classification, and criticality. This registry should act as a single source of truth, containing metadata such as the asset's business function, assigned owner, classification level, and dependencies. Without such a record, organizations risk duplication, blind spots, or conflicting information about who is responsible. A hardened asset registry is not static. It must be regularly updated as systems are procured, modified, or decommissioned. By keeping ownership and classification tied directly to this registry, organizations ensure visibility and prevent assets from drifting into unmanaged territory. Periodic ownership reviews help identify orphaned or misassigned assets. Over time, staff turnover, reorganizations, and system migrations can leave assets without clear responsibility. Reviews catch these gaps by requiring teams to confirm that ownership information remains accurate. For instance, if a database is still assigned to someone who left the company months ago, The review process flags it for reassignment. Hardened organizations make these reviews routine, not exceptional. Just as security controls must be maintained, so must the human accountability structures that support them. Regular reviews prevent ownership from becoming stale or purely symbolic. Automated reminders and ticketing workflows help enforce owner-driven actions such as access reviews, classification renewals, and compliance attestations. By integrating ownership responsibilities into ticketing systems, organizations reduce the chance of tasks being overlooked. Reminders ensure that owners are prompted to complete their duties on time, while escalations can push overdue items to managers or governance bodies. Hardened organizations use automation to sustain accountability, recognizing that manual reminders quickly break down at scale. Technology reinforces discipline, ensuring that ownership responsibilities remain visible and tied to measurable outcomes. Role-based delegation patterns address situations where owners are absent or overloaded. For example, if a system owner is on extended leave, delegated custodians may temporarily assume operational duties. Delegation ensures continuity without erasing accountability, since the primary owner remains documented. Hardened governance models provide clear procedures for how delegation is assigned, how long it lasts, and how responsibilities revert. Without delegation, tasks may be ignored during gaps, undermining resilience. With it, organizations ensure ownership remains a living function even when individual availability changes. Ownership must also be integrated into change management and emergency access processes. Before changes are approved, the designated owner should validate that security implications are understood and that the change aligns with classification requirements. Similarly, emergency access should be logged and tied to ownership oversight, ensuring it is not abused. Hardened organizations embed owners into these workflows, treating them as checkpoints for governance. This integration ensures owners are not only nominally accountable, but actively engaged in decisions that affect the security and stability of their assets. Metrics allow organizations to measure ownership health in tangible ways. Examples include the percentage of assets with current owners, the number of overdue access attestations, or the count of unowned assets discovered in reviews. These metrics provide insight into the effectiveness of governance processes and highlight areas requiring attention. Hardened environments treat ownership not as a static assignment, but as a measurable control. Metrics create accountability at the organizational level, allowing executives to see whether the ownership framework is working or silently eroding. Executive and auditor reporting depends heavily on ownership and classification data. Dashboards showing coverage rates, classification distributions, and ownership gaps demonstrate compliance maturity. Auditors look for evidence that assets are not only identified but actively managed by responsible parties. Reporting transforms ownership into an auditable control, showing external reviewers that governance structures are enforced. Hardened organizations provide these reports regularly, not only to satisfy external stakeholders, but also to inform internal leaders about the state of security accountability across the enterprise. When ownership gaps are discovered, organizations need defined remediation steps. Temporary custodians may be assigned while permanent owners are identified, or escalations may be triggered to senior management to resolve disputes. Without a process, gaps linger and assets remain unmanaged. Hardened environments approach remediation as a structured workflow. Gaps are identified, temporary measures are applied, and final ownership is reassigned quickly. This responsiveness ensures that ownership lapses do not become systemic weaknesses that attackers can exploit. Embedding ownership responsibilities into job descriptions and performance reviews reinforces their importance. When owners are evaluated not only on technical outcomes but also on governance responsibilities, accountability becomes part of organizational culture. Employees understand that managing security and classification is not optional, but integral to their role. Hardened organizations reward those who uphold ownership responsibilities and correct those who neglect them. Embedding expectations formally ensures ownership survives changes in staff, projects, and leadership. Lifecycle handoffs ensure ownership transitions smoothly as assets move from procurement to production and eventually to decommissioning. During procurement, owners are nominated. In production, they enforce controls and monitor activity. During decommissioning, they oversee data wiping and retirement. Without explicit handoffs, responsibilities may vanish as assets change status, leaving systems unmanaged. Hardened governance treats handoffs as critical checkpoints, ensuring assets remain covered throughout their lifespan. This continuity prevents lapses and creates consistent accountability at every stage. Documentation standards ensure that owners record decisions, exceptions, and compensating controls. For example, if an owner approves a temporary deviation from a policy, it should be documented with justification and expiration. This record supports audits and provides future owners with context. Without documentation, ownership knowledge may remain tribal, lost when individuals leave. Hardened organizations insist on structured records that make ownership transparent and traceable across time. These standards turn ownership from an informal expectation into a documented governance function. Clear assignment and classification make security operational, auditable, and accountable. When every asset has an identified owner, when classification dictates handling, and when responsibilities are enforced, security ceases to be abstract. Instead, it becomes a living system where accountability is clear and defenses are predictable. Hardened organizations recognize that people, processes, and policies must align as tightly as technical controls. Ownership and classification transform governance from theory into practice, ensuring that security is embedded into daily operations and visible to both defenders and auditors. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.